One second, sir. Dr. Venkat, you are there?
Yeah, I am there.
Okay. You can introduce.
Sir, myself Venkat, sir, from Narayan Hrudayalaya, Bangalore. Today I will present the case. Hello, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Sir, here is a 20-year-old male patient, Shankar by name, who is a student, resident of Krishnagiri, came from low socioeconomic status, with chief complaints of dyspnea on exertion and chest pain on exertion since 1 year. Coming to history of present illness, patient was apparently alright 1 year back. Then his illness starts with shortness of breath, which was insidious in onset, initially on climbing 2 flights of stairs.
Yes.
And walking for more than 2 kilometers while going to college, that is NHA class 2, which gradually progressed to doing on routine activities like bathing, clothing or walking around 100 to 200 meters. So that is NHA class 3. So the patient is currently in NHA class 3 for the past 1 month, sir. Breathlessness is also associated with same grade of fatigue, sir. And there is no history of orthopnea, PND, cough, wheezing or seasonal variation of breathlessness. Chest pain since 1 year is retrosternal, squeezing type of pain, radiating to left shoulder. So this was initially on exertion, that is walking for 2 kilometers or climbing for 2 flights of stairs, that is NHA class 2, that gradually progressed to NHA class 3, that is on doing routine physical activities. Chest pain relieves on taking rest, and there is no rest pain or nocturnal angina. There is no history of palpitation, syncope or pre-syncope, and there is no history of transient ischemic attack or stroke, no history of prolonged fever, no history of swelling of feet, abdominal distension. There is no past history suggestive of rheumatic fever. There is no history of cyanosis, excessive sweating, Sacrus cycle, recurrent respiratory tract infections during childhood. So coming to past history, sir, there is no history of similar complaints in the past. Coming to family history, no history of similar complaints or cardiac disease in the family. He was first child in the family, born out of second degree consanguineous marriage. And the second child was also male, and he was healthy and alive. Personal history, sleep, appetite, and bowel bladder habits are normal and adequate. So that's about history, sir.
Can you summarize your history?
Sir, here a 20-year-old male patient, sir, with complaints of dyspnea on exertion and chest pain on exertion. The complaints are chiefly on exertion, sir, and there is no other history. Probably an outflow tract obstructive lesion causing this complaint to him.
No, like when you're asked to summarize a history, I think it has to be a bit better. So all of you should practice summarizing it in a single sentence. Like for example, a 20-year-old male with insidious onset of class 2 dyspnea on exertion and angina exertion, which has now progressed to class 3 symptoms. What else is there? Anything else is there?
No, sir. Only these 2 complaints is on.
What are the possibilities you are thinking in terms of?
Sir, his complaints are chiefly on exertion, sir. Probably I'm thinking it's an outflow tract obstructive lesion, sir, or a decreased fixed cardiac output lesion, I think. Like it can be most probably left-sided, sir. It can be supravalvular, valvular, or subvalvular obstructive lesion.
Okay, aortic stenosis, you are thinking number of possibility.
Yes, sir.
So what are the cardiac conditions, structural cardiac conditions that can give rise to classical angina?
Sir, aortic stenosis, pulmonary stenosis, pulmonary hypertension, which can be secondary to mitral stenosis or left heart disease, or can be acute onset in the case of pulmonary embolism. Even coronary artery disease also can be. Coronary artery disease.
Coronary disease is very common, but anything else? In a 20-year-old, what else can produce this? Typical anginal, exertional anginal pains.
So if there is any associated, even pericarditis can also cause chest pain, myocarditis.
Generally, it won't produce such a exertional chest pain.
Yes.
Anomalous coronaries.
So anomalous coronaries is one more thing that can be added to the list that you said.
Okay.
HCM.
HCM is important. HCM, you cannot forget HCM in a 20-year-old.
Yes, sir. Subvalve, it can be HCM also. Sir.
Okay. Then
MVP, sir.
MVP MR also due to tensing of papillary muscles.
So here, if you're asked like what are the cause of chest pain, you should come up with other cause of chest pain, which are more common cause of chest pain, which are not anginal, non-anginal. Then you can bring up pericarditis and other things, pulmonary embolism and all. A typical exertional angina, the list is further scrutinized. Like, so if you have like for example, if you think of non-anginal chest pain, so what else you can add? One is you said MVP MR, pericarditis, pulmonary embolism, all those things can be used. Then another very common disease which has a lot of atypical chest pain.
Costochondritis.
What about ASD? ASD invariably patient comes with a lot of atypical chest pain here and there.
Okay.
Very common, fairly common. This is also a very common presentation also. A lot of patients complain of chest pain, and even after device also they complain of chest pain. Nobody knows what is the cause of chest pain.
Okay.
What else can be there? So how do you decide whether it is anginal chest pain or non-anginal chest pain or non-cardiac chest pain?
Sir, typical angina, it should have three criteria like quality, sir, like a squeezing or pressing or choking type of pain, and associated with aggravating factors which aggravates on exertion or anxiety, and relieving factors like at rest or within use of nitrates. Atypical pain, atypical chest pain, which will have two features of these three. Non-cardiac.
What are those three features? Like you said, three features. What are those classical three features?
Sir, classical type, squeezing type of pain or choking type of pain, sir, which is radiating
pain.
Type
of pain is one of the three features.
Yes, sir. And aggravating factors which are more like on exertion or anxiety related.
Anybody else? Because angina is very basic. Now, like what are the three features that you are looking for? Is it type of pain or what else is important?
Retrosternal pain on exertion relieved by rest on nitrates.
So basically these are the three features that you are looking at. So
yes.
The type of chest pain is not generally given so much of importance. So how that anginal pain is different from myocardial infarction pain?
Sir, anginal pain patient will have on exertion, sir, and there may or may not be rest angina. Myocardial infarction, the patient may have even at rest, sir, associated with sweating, palpitations, and or dyspnea or breathlessness.
So most of these questions you know the answer, but somehow when you are asked in the exams, same problem happens. The most important feature you never tell. Examiner keeps on asking what else.
Duration of pain.
Duration of pain. Undergraduate stuff like what is the duration of pain?
Here,
what is the common duration of anginal chest pain?
Sir, 2 to 5 minutes. Sir.
So
2 to 5 minutes.
Myocardial infarction pains last for
15 to 30 minutes. It will be there.
So mostly they go beyond 15 minutes. Most of them.
15. Yes.
Okay. So another important thing that when you have predominant symptom as angina, then you should know a few bit more about angina. Like what is the afferents and efferents for angina?
Sir, from C8 to T4, sir, afferents.
Which fibers take up the which one produce anginal thing? So does a post-transplant patient has angina?
Yes.
So all these are written. I think you should all know. Like once you have only angina as a predominant symptom, these are the questions that you are anticipating. Like.
Yes.
So what history of acute rheumatic fever you ask for?
Sir, patient having any features of arthritis or basically I look for the rheumatic features of Jones criteria, sir. Rheumatic arthritis, whether history of any previous history of sore throat, whether patient is having a migratory polyarthritis or chorea, or any evidence of subcutaneous nodules, and fever history.
What about monoarthralgia and polyarthralgia? Suppose there is no swelling, there is pain. So how will you consider that?
So that comes under minor criteria, sir. In low risk population, monoarthralgia, polyarthralgia comes under low risk criteria. Low risk population, it comes under minor criteria, sir. And
does India belong to low risk or high risk?
It's a high risk population.
So obviously, if you have any arthralgia, also becomes important.
Yes. Moderate to high risk population, then monoarthralgia also can be taken as major criteria.
So, what is the difference between NOHA classification and Canadian classification like?
Sir, Canadian Cardiovascular Society classification is for only angina, sir. Whereas NOHA functional classification is for dyspnea, angina, and palpitations, sir. Fatigue.
Okay. Party.
Sir. Hello, sir. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
So what are the other possibilities you are thinking in terms of etiology? What possibilities you are thinking?
Etiology taking into the age, sir. If it is valvular, most likely he's having a bicuspid aortic valve, which is causing his outflow tract obstruct lesion, or subaortic membrane, or even supravalvular aortic stenosis. Congenital, probably congenital valvular or.
Why not it's rheumatic?
Sir, rheumatic, here he's having only symptoms of outflow tract obstruction, sir. And there is usually isolated aortic valve involvement is rheumatic is rare, sir, uncommon. And also there is no history of rheumatic fever. Still, we can't say exactly, sir, but one possibility.
How often you have a history of rheumatic fever in a patient with chronic RST?
Sir, it is 50%, sir. Less than 50%.
Less than 50%. In most of the stenotic lesion, it is less than 50%.
And also, yes, there are no other pulmonary symptoms like a hemoptysis, orthopnea, PND to think about mitral valve involvement in this patient. And isolated aortic valve is rare, sir.
Okay. So why not it is HOCM?
Possible, sir. HOCM also is possible, sir. This one. That's why, sir, it is an outflow tract obstruction any level, sir. Either it can be HOCM or subaortic membrane, valvular or supravalvular.
Bicuspid aortic valve, RST, HOCM. These are the three possibilities you are thinking in terms of.
Yes, sir.
Why not this is right angina?
Yes, sir. Since most commonly it's left side, sir. Even it can be right sided lesion also. For example, even pulmonary stenosis or severe pulmonary arterial hypertension, they can have right sided angina also and breathlessness. Symptoms we can't say by history whether it's right side or left side up to now.
So go ahead and the examination.
Yes. So general physical examination. My patient is moderately built and moderately nourished. Well oriented to time, place, and person, with height 173 centimeters and weight 57 kgs, with BMI of 19 kgs per meter square. His arm span is 174 centimeter, and arm span to height ratio is 1, sir. 1.00, sir. Upper segment ratio, upper segment 85 centimeters, lower segment 87 centimeters, with ratio of 0.95. Coming to vitals, pulse 80 per minute regular, low volume, slow rising, late peaking pulse. There is no radio-radial delay and no radio-femoral delay. All peripheral pulses are felt. Carotid shudder I felt, sir. And coming to blood pressure, upper limb 110 by 80 mm of Hg, which pulse pressure of 30 mm of Hg, and lower limb systolic blood pressure 140 mm of Hg. Respiratory rate 18 per minute, abdominothoracic type. Temperature, patient is afebrile. Into JVP normal with 3 centimeters above mean column 3 centimeters above the sternal angle, and normal waveforms are seen with normal respiratory variation, and there is no abdominal jugular reflex is absent. There is no pallor, icterus, cyanosis, clubbing, lymphadenopathy, and there is no pedal edema. No spine and skeletal abnormalities. No skin lesions or scars. So that is about general physical examinations.
Okay.
Shall I go ahead, sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Coming to systemic examinations, cardiovascular system, combining inspection and palpation, shape of chest symmetrical, trachea central, apical impulse in the fifth intercostal space, in the midclavicular line, heaving type of apical impulse with middle retraction, that is LV type of apical impulse. Systolic thrill present in the right second intercostal space, carotid shadow present, apicocarotid delay present, and palpable S4 present. No other palpable heart sounds, no parasternal or epigastric pulsations, no enlarged veins, scars, or sinuses. Coming to percussion, left cardiac border corresponds to apex, and right cardiac border is retrosternal. Left second intercostal space is resonant, and right second intercostal space is dull on percussion. Liver dullness felt on fifth intercostal space. Stomach tympani is felt on left side, sir. So that is about percussion. Yes. Coming to auscultation, S1 normal, sound 1 is normal, S2 paradoxical split with A2 soft, A2 component soft, and there is no S3, LVS4 present, sir. An ejection click present at aortic area and all over pericardium. It's best here at the apex with no respiratory variation. Yeah, and a harsh mixed frequency crescendo decrescendo ejection systolic murmur of grade 4/6, that is lasting more than 50% of systole, and with late peaking heard in the aortic area with the patient sitting and leaning forward, the diaphragm of stethoscope with the breath held at expiration, and the murmur is connecting to carotids and radiating to apex with no change in frequency. And one more murmur, sir, a high frequency blowing decrescendo early diastolic murmur of grade 2 appeared in left third intercostal space. It's lasting less than 50% of diastole with the diaphragm of ausculted with the diaphragm of stethoscope with the patient in sitting and leaning forward position. There are no other auscultatory sounds or murmurs over pericardium and back. So other system examinations are normal.
So basically you have two murmurs.
Yes, sir.
Systolic murmur and
early diastolic
murmur.
Yes, sir. And ejection click also I'm having.
You have ejection click.
Yes.
So what about left parasternal heave?
Left parasternal heave not this, absent. Sorry.
You should come out with it. That's a very important thing.
Yes.
So there is no left parasternal heave.
Yes, sir.
And you have paradoxical split.
Yes, sir, paradoxical split.
So what's your diagnosis?
Sir, congenital valvular heart disease, bicuspid aortic valve with severe AS with mild AR, in sinus rhythm in NHA class 3, with mild to moderate pulmonary venous hypertension, with no pulmonary arterial hypertension, with no evidence of infected endocarditis, and with no evidence of thromboembolism.
Why you say it's severe AS?
Sir, first from coming history, patient is symptomatic, sir. Symptomatic patient, and pulse it is a low volume, slow rising, late peaking pulse, sir. Pulsus parvus head orders, and patient is also having narrow pulse pressure. Patient is having a palpable S4 and apicocarotid delay present, sir. Coming to auscultation wise, patient is having paradoxical split and a S4 present. Patient is having ejection systolic murmur which is lasting more than 50% of the systole. So I felt it is severe.
Okay. Where will the apex be if there is severe AS?
Sir, it can be in the normal position, or it can be in the just in the fifth intercostal space in the midclavicular lens.
No, will it be will there be cardiomegaly or no cardiomegaly in AS?
No cardiomegaly in AS, sir. It's only a concentric.
Why there is no? So the hypertrophy should produce some shifting of the heart, no?
That isn't just, sir. That's why it's in the apical region or just in the midclavicular region.
But generally there is no cardiomegaly. Why there is no cardiomegaly? If there is LVH you must have seen in echo. LVH goes to 20 centimeters also.
Sir, here the muscle as a compensatory mechanism, the smooth muscles are laid on in a parallel fashion, sir, rather than series, which is common in eccentric hypertrophy.
So the answer to this question is that it happens at the expense of the cavity.
Good. Yeah, good.
The hypertrophy happens at the expense of the cavity.
It is more of thickness rather than the thickness and
the thickness happens at the expense of the cavity.
Okay.
So then what is the importance of S4?
It indicates it's a pre-systolic thrust, sir. It indicates that LV is non-compliant and it indicates increased LVDP, sir. It is due to atrial contraction and its origin is from ventriculus. It also indicates severity of AS. Sir.
Okay. So what is the importance of ejection click in this patient like?
Sir, it indicates the obstruction is at the valvular level and it indicates the valve is pliable and it's not completely calcified. Indicates bicuspid aortic valve also.
So mostly it indicates bicuspid aortic valve.
Bicuspid aortic valve, yes.
Okay. So what happens with severity of AS and the timing of click?
It comes closer to S1, sir. And the click.
Why do you get paradoxical split in AS?
It is a prolonged ejection time, sir, because of aortic obstruction. Prolonged ejection time, so they will get a delayed A2 component.
So, what do you want to do for him?
Sir,
now, can we have the X-ray and ECG?
Sir, this patient ECG X-ray not there, sir. Only hypothetical case is there.
Okay. So you made a very simple undergraduate case as hypothetical case. Okay.
X-ray ECG hypothetical, sir. Case is present.
Case is present there. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sir, 1 minute, sir. I'll just share.
Why do you say it's mild AR?
Sir, there is no clinical feature suggestive of severe AR, sir. There is no wide pulse pressure. There is no Hill sign. And there is the LV apex is not shifted down and out, and it's not hyperdynamic.
What about the duration of the murmur? Like, suppose you want to call, I agree with you, it's not severe, but whether it is mild or moderate, how do you decide?
Duration of the murmur also indicates the severity of ARs.
And severity of AR?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In severity
what about
of
duration of murmur? Like, you describe a fairly long murmur.
Yes, sir. If it is lasting more than 50% of the diastole, then it gets a severe AR.
But what is your description?
Mine is lasting less than 50% of the diastole.
So what are the common accompaniments of bicuspid aortic valve?
Sir, they may have associated cooptation of aorta. They may have associated even ASD, VSD, PDA, and as a part of syndrome, sir, like Williams syndrome, Turner syndrome, cooptation of aorta, Turner syndrome. Sometimes they may have even hypoplastic left heart syndrome. And aortopathy they may have.
How common is bicuspid aortic valve?
So 2% in the general population.
Okay. Can you read this ECG?
Yes, sir. Sir, it's a two-lead surface ECG, normal standardization, with rate of around 76 beats per minute, regular rhythm, sinus rhythm, with axis of plus 45 degrees, sir, and normal PV waves and normal PR interval. There is the LVH, sir, with upright T waves. Here there is no strain patterns in this patient.
Is this consistent with your diagnosis?
No, sir. Here only LVH is there, sir, in this patient. It's not consistent. Maybe because of mild AR, the patient is having upright T waves and absence of strain pattern.
So basically, is it volume overload or pressure overload based on the ECG?
Sir, here only small Q wave with upright T waves is there, sir. Maybe here it is volume overloaded. Sir.
More like volume overload, like.
Yes. Sir. Q waves are not prominent, sir, actually in V5, V6. Only the upright T waves and the LVH.
If there is LVH and then such upright T waves are there, then possibly you more consistent with definitely not pressure overload.
Yes, sir. Not pressure overload.
Can you have the X-rays?
Nikhil, X-ray. Sir, X-ray PA view. The little overexposed, sir, for more than 4 thoracic vertebrae are seen, and there is a LV type of apex, no cardiomegaly. Prominent ascending aorta is it's a dilated aorta, and there is no evidence of PH or PVH.
So, in clinical assessment, what is your assessment of PVH?
Sir, since patient is having class 3 dyspnea, thought it is a mild to moderate pulmonary venous hypertension.
But what is the functional class like?
Class 3, sir. Patient is in class 3.
The patient is class 3, but why the X-ray is not showing any PVH?
So actually, this is some other patients with same diagnosis.
Okay. So what else is prominent here?
Ascending aorta is prominent, sir, dilated.
So that is one of the very common associations of bicuspid aortic valve.
Yes, sir, aortopathy will be there.
So I think in practical terms, I think that aortic dilatation is almost invariably present in 20-year-olds, and then you have coarctation of aorta. Is this patient having coarctation of aorta?
No, sir, this patient is not having coarctation.
Not your patient, this patient whose X-ray is being shown.
No, sir. No, sir, not him.
There is no rib notching, like there seems to be some rib notching, doubtful. No.
No, sir, not clear.
And then there seems to be some 3 sign like.
Yes.
So what do you want to do for him?
Sir,
do you have the echo report? Do you have the echo report?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll read the report.
Yeah.
Sir, It's a bicuspid aortic wall, severe AS, mild AR, ascending aorta dilated, aortopathy, concentric LVH, normal PA pressure, good biventricular function. Gradient is 101 by 56 mm of Hg. And aortic valve annulus 21 mm, sinus 28 mm, ascending aorta 39 mm. Sir.
So now you want Dr. Venkat, what do you want to do for him?
Sir, he is a 20-year-old male patient, sir, with associated mild AR also. So, bicuspid aortic valve. So, I would see the patient we need to do for aortic wall replacement, sir, probably with biprosthetic aortic wall.
Why
Which is,
biprosthetic?
Sorry,
Is
sir.
it biprosthesis? No? Why
No, no,
biprosthesis?
sir. Mechanical, sir. Sorry. In this patient, mechanical.
So how do you decide between bioprosthesis and mechanical valve?
Sir, if the patient is, according to guidelines, if the patient is more than 70 years, bioprosthetic aortic valve is ideal, sir, to avoid the use of anticoagulants, as there is increased risk of bleeding risk in them. And the patients less than 50 years without any history of contraindications to anticoagulation, bioprosthetic, mechanical valve can be given. 50 to 70 years, it depends upon the patient conditions, individually according to patient.
What about the ballooning the valve?
Sir, a patient is already having a mild AR, sir, which may aggravate on doing balloon aortic valvuloplasty, and also he's having associated aortopathy also. So we can't do BAV here.
But anyway, are you going to do a Bentall for him?
Yes, sir. Since the aortic root is dilated here.
Yeah, what is the aortic root?
Modified Bentall procedure.
Yeah, but what is the aortic root diameter like?
Yes, just.
Is it 39?
Yes, sir. It's 40. Yes, 39.
So what is the indication for doing a Bentall versus AVR in him?
Sir,
you suggested only AVR for him, man. You never suggested Bentall for him.
Yes, according to the aortic root dimensions, we'll decide for modified Bentall procedure or only isolated aortic valve replacement.
So how do you decide the aortic root dimensions? Like, is echo good enough?
No, sir. CT we have to do CT and.
So you first of all do a CT, and then if he needs what are the cutoffs for doing an Bentall like?
Sir, if it is more than 45 mm associated with aortic valve disease, then we need to do both root replacement and valve replacement, sir. If it is 50 mm, more than 50 mm, and with positive history of family like aortic dissection or rapid growth of rapid dilatation of aortic.
In his case, it will be 45. In his case, it will be 45 for an indication for a Bentall compared to a AVR.
AVR, yes, sir.
So if you are doing an AVR only, suppose very unlikely if its diameter is 39, it's unlikely to be 45 on CT.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So if you open up the valve, what will happen to the aortopathy?
No, AR
what are the results of bicuspid aortic valve opening in 20-year-olds in adolescents?
Here it is good, sir, if it is only isolated aortic stenosis, but patient is having AR also in this patient.
It is mild AR. You said it's mild AR. Is mild AR a contraindication to AVBD? So what are the results in adolescents? Like bicuspid aortic valve in adolescents, what are the results?
Sir, usually favorable results compared to the elderly.
How much failure rate? What is the failure rate of bicuspid aortic valve balloon dilatation in children?
I don't know, sir. I don't know, sir.
When you have such a simple case, the discussion goes on into these areas only.
Okay. Okay, sir.
So anybody can think of any series and any results that are been published? Anybody can think of? what are the long-term outcomes of aortic valve balloon dilatation in children? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't know, sir.
Don't know, sir.
Like, for example, you should all now know there is a big American registry of all these centers put together, and it is not as great as we think. Like, if you look at all the negative outcomes and the significant AR, everything comes to around, say, around 1/3 of patients don't have adequate good outcomes. Like, it's not like PVBD and all. PVBD still is a palliative procedure. But compared to children, there is a good paper from Escorts that has been published by Srivastava ma'am ka paper hai. So they have published and they said कि adolescent and children में there is not much of a difference in outcomes.
Okay.
So in our practice, one of the critical determinants of choosing a patient for ballooning and not ballooning is generally the aortic annulus size, because of the limitation of the groin and the balloons available. Like, if you have an annulus of 21, this patient has an annulus of 21, so you can pretty well do a 20/6 balloon dilatation and give it a chance before you send him for AVR. Anyway, otherwise he's going for AVR, you can give it a try. So most of the time, AR doesn't increase much. Like, the chance of AR becoming more is roughly around 10%. And maybe around 20% chance that the valve may not open adequately. You won't have a good reduction in gradients. So in other words, 2/3 you may end up doing nothing afterwards. So still it's a good palliation. Like, you can give it a try. If the patient understands, you can give it a try.
Yes.
But the major limiting factor is the availability of a larger balloons. Like,
Okay.
is there any other way of circumventing that? Suppose larger balloons are not available, you have Inouye available. So how will you do AVBD with Inouye?
Double balloon, sir.
Double
balloon is almost given up. We have tried and the results are not good. Like, double balloon is something that has been tried. It has been reported. It has been tried. How do you do? My question is, how do you do AVBD with Inouye balloon?
Don't know, sir.
So what is antegrade and retrograde AVBD? So you do a septal puncture and you take a Swan-Ganz catheter into LV and then cross it across like LV to aorta, and then take an Inouye balloon across.
Okay.
And this has been well reported, and there are very good papers of AVBD using Inouye when the balloon sizes are not available. You can use Inouye lesser than annulus also. It gives good results. But of late nobody is doing it because I think there is a definite risk of mitral valve injury during this procedure. If a patient with AS has a mitral valve injury, acute MR, then mostly you won't be able to salvage the patient. So that's why this procedure has almost given up. Right? Nobody is doing antegrade AVBD anymore. But still, in experienced hands, that can be considered even if the annulus is large.
Okay.
So, what are the surgical mortality like in an AVR? If you're sending for an AVR versus Bentall, what are the surgical risks? Why this distinction is very important? Like, why we have to be strict with Bentall? What is the surgical mortality of Bentall and what is the surgical mortality of AVR?
Percentage.
Any ideas? No. So all these questions you should read the European database, the data, American database data, ATS data. All these are available, easily available as a click of a button. AVR, MVR, current mortalities you should know, and you should be aware of what is happening in our country also, a bit about our country. Some of the published data, valve replacement you should know, because valve is your long case invariably.
Yes.
So some guess AVR का कितना mortality होगा in a 20-year-old compared to Bentall mortality.
AVR around 10%.
AVR 3.5.
AVR 3.5. Yeah. That is 10%
Less than
for
5%.
Bentall. So can we do TAVI for him?
TAVI now, sir. Actually, high risk and only intermediate risk, sir. Low surgical risk patient, not at No guidelines are actually, but recent trial has shown can be tried in the low risk population.
So have they included 20-year-olds in that?
No, sir, not included.
So what about TAVI in bicuspid article? Is there any issue?
There are some articles that we can try in the bicuspid wall also. So only thing is iotopathy. Iotopathy
Like
article.
its results are actually not so good. Compared to other things, bicuspid article per se is a problem area for TAVI. But with newer valves, I think things are settling down now. It's no longer a bigger problem as compared to the previous generation valves.
Okay.
Especially 20-year-old, I think you should not be doing a TAVI.
No, sir.
What will you do if he has coarctation of aorta in addition?
So first coarctation of aorta should be relieved, sir. Then the aortic stenosis.
Why he's going for surgery? Why can't you do both surgeries? You want to relieve it in cath lab first.
In surgery, yes, sir, with off pump.
No. Do you want to send him in one setting both surgeries or one surgery? What do you want to do? If he has coarctation also.
Sir, coarctation relieved, and then we should recheck the gradients across the bicuspid. Aortic wall.
No, this is very severe. He has angina. He has LVH. Everything is there. So basically, he needs two surgeries.
Two surgeries. Okay.
Why?
How many people
Why he need two surgeries?
Sir, around 31 are there, sir.
So in a 20-year-old, they cannot open the chest from the sternotomy. They cannot
order NT-proBNP on telephone.
Coarctation repair in a 20-year-old with sternotomy. They can do it in a very small kid. In an infant, they can do a VSD closure with coarctation repair in the same sitting, but they can't do it in a 20-year-old.
Okay.
So he'll end up having two surgeries. One lateral thoracotomy surgery for coarctation, and then he will go for proper AVR again in two sets. Same setting two surgeries or different setting two surgeries. So it's always better that you relieve the coarctation in the cath lab with a balloon or a stent, and then send him for an AVR later.
Okay.
Any questions?
Sir, for balloon
if this patient
dilatation,
is
Yeah, one at a time. Ask. Go ahead.
sir, for balloon
sir, if this
dilatation,
patient
sorry, you please go ahead. I'll later.
sir, if this patient is a female, so what is the approach, sir, management wise?
Management, I think female is much better to give a balloon. I would personally prefer a balloon because even with an AR, they generally tolerate AR much better. Unless it is very severe, acute severe AR, they don't tolerate well because they have concentric LVH. So if you have a female patient, then it's better to give them a balloon. I think I have few patients whom I have balloon, and even with the moderate AR, they go on for a few years and they complete the families and they go for AVR. Ultimately, when you do it in adolescence, you are just delaying surgery. That people have to understand. Most of the time, very few I have got excellent results, but 1/3 I would say around 1/3 I would have got excellent results. Nothing is needed forever, but then 1/3 you will have AR which keeps on progressing over time, and then you will end up something. On 1/3 you will generally fail. Or either AR becomes very severe who needs AVR immediately, or you end up having early AVR, or you don't relieve the gradient fully. This is what I would have done maybe around 40-50 AVBDs in this age group. But I would prefer generally AVBD as a one. If the patient understands the risks and everything, we should give it a try, especially in a female patient.
Sir,
in
in
India,
this patient,
pregnancy with valve is a very bad thing.
because female, a 20-year unmarried girl, so with significant AS and AR, so if they ask for which valve to be preferred, so what we should say, sir?
Because AR is not significant, it's mild AR. Mild AR is not a significant thing for, suppose if your patient has mitral valve disease and then mild AR, you are not going to touch the aortic valve. So mild AR is nothing needs to be done. You take away mild AR from the picture, but everybody will say that mechanical valve has to be preferred. Why? Because even if you put an aortic valve, generally the chances of restenosis are very high. 20-year-old, by the time she has 2 pregnancies, she will have valve failure. Especially when you put in a bioprosthetic valve, even the new generation valve, in extremely active patients, the degenerative rate is very, very fast. So I think it's not a good idea to put biological valve. But our surgeons have also done a few, but mostly DVR situations like aortic valve, you can get away with a mechanical valve. You can consider biological valve in especially DVR situations or in MVR situations, like mostly. Mechanical valves will be preferred. Am I online?
Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Sir, this balloon dilatation, we'll have to do that fast ventricular pacing during dilatation of the balloon. Or,
Yeah.
sir, what rate we normally pacing?
Generally, it depends like what. Primarily, you want to reduce the blood pressure. Generally, we keep it around 160 or 180. So if the patient is having tachycardia, you can go up till 160. 160 generally works like. At times we go to 180 in children and all, but then 160 is fine. Most of the adult patients like. You want to reduce the heart rate. That's all. You want to reduce the cardiac output like. And then generally the need has come down with the longer balloons that are available like. So previously it used to be in almost all patients. Now I think we use only when we fail like generally 22 into 6. In this patient, like for example 20 into 6 balloon generally works fine. Unless the patient LV is too contractile, hypercontractile and all those things, you end up putting a pacemaker under. It's better to, if you are failing again and again, it's difficult to cross, or if it is if the balloon is not staying, generally we go for pacing. Anything else?
Sir, one question, sir. Sir, clinically, is it possible to kind of clinically diagnose a subaortic membrane other than the ejection click? Is it, can we, from the character of the murmur or the grade of the murmur, can we say that a subaortic membrane is present?
So, like, you can never be 100%. But then if suppose, for example, if you have a HOCM is very different. HOCM has typical features. If they are there, you can definitely be sure about HOCM, especially dynamic auscultation and all. If it is not there, then you look at absence of a click. You should always keep a differential diagnosis of non-valvular AS. Like if you are diagnosing AS and there is no, it's not rheumatic AS, then you should always keep a subvalvular AS as possibility, because generally by and large 20-year-old no click means it's not bicuspid atrial AS. Very rarely you can have a calcific AS which is not producing a click, but generally by and large, no click means no valvular AS. Bicuspid atrial valve nahi hai. Can be RST and all other things can be there, but then it's not valvular. That's the most important thing. Then the other thing that can help you is the location of the murmur and the radiation to the carotids. Like they may not be there in bicuspid atrial valve. And supravalvular AS has typical features, like supravalvular AS has typical features of murmur going or the flow of blood more going into the one side compared to the other side. If there is pulse asymmetry, all those things are there. You can positively diagnose supravalvular AS, and then you have thrills in the top, in the carotids, in this supraclavicular area. You can diagnose supravalvular AS. So primarily, it all boils down to click.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, subaortic membrane has predominantly AR predominant or AS predominant, sir?
So generally, echocardiographically, invariably it will have AR, echocardiographically in this age. But then clinically, may or may not be AR, maybe may not be there. It can always present with a severe AS also. But AR, as you said, the AR is more likely to be there in in subvalvular AS than subaortic membrane than compared to bicuspid aortic valve.
Okay,
And
sir.
one more question that I wanted to ask, which I didn't ask, was what is the natural history of bicuspid aortic valve? Like, for example, in an adult, how often it presents with AS, how often it presents with AR, how often a combination of both? All those things you should know the numbers.
Yes, sir.
Which is more common, AR, AS, or combination of both?
So based on one series, it is one third is beyond the 20 years of age group.
So generally, it increases beyond adolescent. The proportion of AR increases, but in children, it is generally asymptomatic or AS.
Yes.
Phenolingo et al.
Phenolingo, yes.
So other things that if you want to go into detail, you can go into the phenotypic characterization of bicuspid aortic valve, which valves get used, what happens with that. You can know about all of them, but then that's okay. If you reach that level, then you are already passed. Like,
Yes.
Sir, the AVR, the aortopathy regresses or remain the same, sir? In bicuspid
it
aortic valve?
can progress, like it can progress also, it can remain the same also. Nobody knows, nobody, you cannot predict a priori in a particular patient. But generally, it doesn't progress, it becomes static. Because most important contributor to that, there are two components to this. One is there is a defect in the valve itself. Aortic valve is defective. Aortic media is defective. Number two, that defective media is being hit by a jet. So if you have seen in your practice also, in your patients you are doing everybody also, mostly the dilatation happens when there is a jet striking that area. It is not a uniform dilatation. So it can definitely retard the progression, but still after AVR also people have progressed and have required Bentall later on. So any other drug that can be effective in them?
ACE inhibitors has been tried, sir, and beta blockers to some extent.
ARBs.
Beta blockers.
Statin also.
Why losartan specifically, or why ARBs? Beta blockers have been tried. Beta blockers have been tried because of a hemodynamic reason, like they reduce the dP by dt. So the force with which you are hitting at the valve is reduced. Wall is reduced. Whereas, what about losartan? Why losartan?
Sir, there is a role of transforming growth factor beta,
Good.
which has been
They work
affected
at
by
a basic
losartan.
molecular level. But then you should know in Marfan's also it has been tried, and in bicuspid aortic valve also it has been tried, and there is no randomized control trial of very large randomized control trial of ARB and beta blocker. There is no difference. Like, so both can be tried. Like, both can be given in an individual patient. So because of the valvulopathy, coming back to your question, that we don't know which patient will progress, and majority may become static. Like.
So, sir, in that case, sir, if the patient has to be, suppose if a patient has to be has to undergo AVR, and if the aortic diameter is between 40 and 45, so how do we take that decision to replace the ascending aorta or no, sir?
Generally, you just do AVR. If it is not beyond 45, unless there is a family history of dissection or anything else is there, then you go ahead and do it at 40, because Bentall is a bad surgery. Like, it's not a simple surgery. It has its own problem. Like, it all depends on the surgeons. Like, generally, whatever you say, the surgeon will go ahead and at times they find the aorta not good on the table. Despite your diameter, they may go ahead and do a Bentall. But generally, we stick to the guideline, majority of them. The reason why this cutoff is there is that the long-term events are related to this cutoff. Like, if you do an AVR, the chances of him needing a Bentall comes down drastically later on if the diameter is less than 45. So once it is beyond 45, the chances of him requiring needing a Bentall or having a dissection is far higher. That is why this cutoff, even this cutoff is actually very, very stringent. Actually, the chances of dissection and all increases after 50, 55 only. But the rate of progression is very fast if it is beyond 45. So it's a relative thing. It's not an absolute thing. Like, it's at 45 doesn't the chance of dissection doesn't increase exponentially. Actually, the chance of rupture and dissection increase exponentially after 55. So still we are operating at 45. 45 itself is a very aggressive cutoff. So I would suggest that we should not be too more aggressive. Like we cannot reduce it to 40 or 35 or anything like, because it's not a great surgery. If it's a great surgery, we should do it in everybody. But the mortality, operative mortality is 8% different. Like, so obviously the benefit that you are getting should be more than 8%. Like, so if you, for example, what I mean to say is, suppose somebody has a diameter of 40, I don't think he has a 8% chance of dying suddenly because of a rupture or dissection in next 10 years also.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I think.
Hello. Thank you.
Thanks,
So
sir.
how is the corona situation in your places in Hyderabad and Bangalore?
Sir, in Bangalore, it is okay, sir. Not it is increasing, but not as much as Bombay, sir.
Yeah. Somehow Bangalore has been saved, I think, overall. It's good. I think Bangalore is not that much affected. Delhi, we are in the process of getting more cases, it seems.
Okay, sir.
The cases are increasing, the severity of cases are also increasing. Let's see what happens.
Yes. Sir, about exams, any ideas, sir?
I mean,
in AIMS, we are planning for a virtual exam only, like this.
Okay, sir.
Maybe if we find some cases, we will keep some cases and then have virtual exams.
Oh, okay, sir.
I hope there are no AIMS people here.
no,
There are
nobody, sir, I think.
Okay.
No, he
So
is
about-
not in this group.
So what about DNB, sir? Any ideas?
I really don't know what they are going to decide. Like, maybe they are all waiting and watching how things will pan out. Like,
Okay, sir.
everybody is
Any
thinking of having
tentative
local
date?
examiners. Like,
Sir?
mostly, I think people will go for local examiners, crisscrossing and here and there and all those kind of stuff.
Okay, sir. So actually, they have given us one notice that exam will be conducted from June to September, and they have given us liberty to choose the zones, sir, like West Zone, South, North, and East. But they have not told like in a particular state or anything. So
When they have given date is September.
Sir, they have given a wide
No, sir,
range.
I mean-
June to September, sir.
June to September.
Yes, sir.
That is for exam date, sir, and we have to submit our zone choice by 31st of May.
Oh.
But they have given one zone, that is West Zone, which includes by and large 3 centers like Pune, Mumbai, and Ahmedabad. But as of now, Ahmedabad and Mumbai is one of the worst affected cities in India. So we don't know whether they are planning for West Zone or not.
I don't know what nobody can. I don't think nobody can think nobody can predict what is going to happen in August and September. Most likely, things should settle down. I think things should come back to normal. I think worst thing could be that Bombay has settled, and then by August, September, South is more or West East is more. We don't know what is going to happen. We can't predict. Like, I think they also will be flexible. I think if that kind of a thing happens, and if you opt.
Hello, sir. You're not audible, sir.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, like, even if you opt for West, if things don't happen in West and if it happens in rest of the places, I don't think you will miss your exams. You will be given an opportunity to switch.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
So, but by and large, which zone will you guys prefer?
Sir, currently, wherever we are stationed, we are giving that zone only, sir. Most of them.
Okay. So most of you don't want to travel to different zones. Yeah, that's
yeah,
better.
sir. Because some states they are giving mandatory institutional quarantine. So sometimes they are cancelling flights also.
Yeah. Better at least in the zone. I think mostly you can travel by your car also. Like
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The only option they have, sir, is to conduct means in their state only, like respective state. That will be the best option. And examiners, sir, MCI has given a notice like to have examiners online also. They can have that is external as a online.
we are planning for that. Most likely we are getting local examiners in AIIMS.
Okay, sir.
All the institutions are trying for local examiners, and I think should not be a big deal. Like in Delhi and all, it's not a big deal. For DM, it's not a big problem.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Chalo, all of you take care.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.